Hi guys.
Hey. How you doing?
You look awesome.
Thank you. So why Supergirl? Why Supergirl now when the rest of the DCU is so grim dark?
I think because of that, I think that there's something so amazing about just seeing somebody so full of life and so full of hope, and somebody who really can be a symbol for people and a symbol for young women, but also a symbol for everybody. There is a grimness to a lot of comic book adaptations lately, and what always appeals to Greg and I is sort of embracing the light, and you see those pictures of Melissa, just in the suit, and it's like, Peter Roth, who's the head of Warner Brothers, after Melissa auditioned, she walked out and he said, "That's the closest I've come to feeling what I felt when I watched Christopher Reeve." And it's no disrespect to any of the other adaptations. It's just that specifically is not out there right now, and it's really nice for us to live in that world and be able to present that.
So you obviously want the show to kind of grow on its own and become its own entity, but we also have Flash and Arrow, and it's all kind of under the same banner. Is this gonna be a giant shared universe at some point?
Well, there's whether or not Supergirl ever becomes part of the CW verse, those are questions above my pay grade. I think for right now, whenever you expand those things, there's always the danger of when you stretch it out, it all collapses. And we were as surprised, I think, as everybody that Flash and Arrow seem to make each other stronger, and adding Legends to it hopefully will make it all rise up even higher. But Supergirl is its own thing, and that's sort of okay. I think you don't want to put. I don't think. Hopefully, Supergirl won't need that, and adding it to the mix might just make the whole thing kind of collapse. But that doesn't mean that Supergirl won't be as expansive as those other shows. We're adding DC Comics characters to that show in the same way that Flash had Firestorm, and the way that Flash showed up on Arrow, and so Supergirl isn't just going to be Supergirl. It's going to be a whole bunch of other DC Comics characters, some of whom you've seen before that you're going to see in a new light with us, and then others that have never gotten their live action due that we're very excited about.
Now, Flash and Arrow obviously has a lot of flashbacks. Are we going to see that with Supergirl? We started seeing that with the pilot, or is that going to be a trend throughout the season?
We're going to see more of that. And what's really interesting, and the big difference between, or one of the big differences between Kara and Clark is that, when Superman was brought to Earth, he was a baby. He doesn't remember Krypton. It's not, and he says he's an alien, but the truth of the matter is, as far as he's concerned, he grew up in Kansas. And Kara was 13 years old, when she was sent here. She had friends, she had family, she had a full life there, and that is a big difference between them. And we're going, so there's going to be flashbacks on the show to when Kara was growing up in Midvale when she's living with Helen Slater and Dean Cain, but we're also going to have flashbacks to her in Krypton, which is something you've never really been able to see before. And what's interesting about that is that Kara has experiences and knowledge from living on this advanced alien planet that she can actually bring to bear in solving some of these crimes that they have to do. And then also just the lessons of remembering growing up with a mother and father who loved her, and the sadness of that they're gone. It's a different kind of sadness than Clark feels, that he never knew his parents. But for Kara, she remembers her mom, and it's that in a way feels similar to Flash and what Barry went through with his mother.
Was the casting of Dean Cain as her adoptive father, was that, I feel that there is a similar vibe between this and Lois and Clark, the original 90s version. Is the casting an homage to that?
Oh, totally. When we did The Flash, having John Wesley Shipp on the show was our first priority, and like we always say, and it's the truth, we're fans first. We love this stuff. And we grew up watching the Christopher Reeve movies and Helen Slater and Supergirl, and I religiously watched Lois and Clark, and we've actually got a couple of more homages, and having all of those things come into our show, it makes it it's fun to be part of that legacy, and there's a heritage, and we always say we're just the lucky guys who get to drive this section of the track. and acknowledging that other people came before us. So, but then also on a practical level for us, it was, we didn't want anyone to think Superman was a jerk for like leaving her behind, and you know, so it's like, well, if he drops her off with Superman and Supergirl, you know, it really can't be that bad.
Thanks, everyone.
Cool.
Thank you.